Welcome to Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. My name is Brandon Bornancin, a serial salesperson and entrepreneur, and I'm sitting down with the world's best sales experts to share their top secrets to sales success. Welcome to this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. And I am, I forgot to hit Zencastr recording. All right, let's do it again. Motherfucker. This is why I hate rushing. All right. Welcome to this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. And I'm thrilled, honored, grateful, and humbled to have with me my friend, my advisor, my mentor, one of my favorite authors, one of my top partners, the founder of the Sales Developers, the student of sales himself, Mr. Ryan Reisert. What's going on? Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Brandon. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, we're thrilled to dive in. So obviously, you're the co-founder and CEO of the Sales Developers. You ran the Inside Sales Boot Camp. You sold for a unicorn sprinkler and Bushaka. You worked at a top paid search agency. I'm really excited. The audience, nominated you to join the show today, and I know they're curious to learn two big things. One, who's Ryan Reisert? Where'd you come from? How'd you get started in sales? And then what are the sales successes and learnings that you had at each of the places that you sold for? And you've got an extensive sales leadership background from inside sales to outside sales to VP of sales, which will be really exciting. And then the audience is dying to know, obviously, what is your top sales secret to sales success? If you could go back in time, to just starting in sales, if you had to hire someone and give them one secret written on a napkin, written on a piece of paper, one page in a book, what is that top sales secret? But let's get started with Ryan. Who is Ryan Reisert? Where did you come from? How did you get started in sales? What's your background, man?
Yeah. So first and foremost, and I'm going to do this live with you, it's Reisert, not Reisert.
Reisert.
And that's okay because I've been waiting to do that for you. Reisert. But who am I? So I actually stumbled into sales. I think a lot of folks actually have this similar story where it's not like, you grew up wanting to be a sales professional. I actually came from a pretty rough area. Actually, my zip code in the state of Washington is the poorest zip code in the entire state. My parents are janitors. My brother and sister are felons.
Wow.
That was my life. I was the first in my family to go to college, and I only got there because of the coaches and all of the folks that I had grown up with who had influenced my life on a positive way, kind of pushed me to college. Otherwise, I'd probably be either on the streets myself or maybe in jail like my brother and sister. But I went to school.
And with your parents, so your parents were janitors.
Yeah.
Your brother and sister are felons, like literally served or in jail. And
yeah,
how'd you not get wrapped up in that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the youngest in my family. So while my brother and sister made a lot of mistakes, they also always pushed me. And I was a little bit different than them as well. So I always did well in school. I always did well in athletics. I was a 3-sport varsity 4-year letter winner, and I was a 4-year letter winner in soccer and wrestling, and a 2-year letter winner in football. So I did everything, right? I was in ROTC, I was in choir, I was in orchestra, I played the stand-up bass. I did everything. I worked jobs on the weekends. I was that type of kid. And my family always knew hey, you're going to be different. You get out of here. And while they made mistakes, they influenced me, but also just had great coaches and mentors, from my teachers, or my one of the biggest ones was my wrestling coach, who would push me through to be something bigger. And so I obviously was a part of a lot of the stuff. I did get in some trouble, but I always had that kind of fallback on oh, Ryan's the the good kid, if you will, right? Gets good grades, does well in everything that he does. And
Well, you probably saw like your brother and sister. Like, did that motivate you? Like, hey, I don't want to be like them. I don't want to grow up like them.
oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Although there was times where, my brother at one point was a very, very successful street pharmacist, as we call it. And so, there was times where you kind of move
Learn
into the,
sales.
yeah, you learn a bit from that, but you also, look at what he has at some times, and then you see all that crumble as well, because obviously that's not sustainable anytime. It doesn't matter who it is. And
So the
so,
zip code was like big into drugs and a lot of drugs and whatnot in that area.
yeah, you can look it up. It's called Hilliard, Washington. It's in Spokane. It's a pretty rough area. So I have a tattoo on my ribs from it. So that's where I came from. And I was really good at math in high school, not so good at English. Still struggle with some of this stuff because I grew up in such a interesting household, right? Like, you don't have that grammar and those things that really help you understand how to read and write from a young age. But I understood numbers, and I was always like in advanced math classes. And so I went to college thinking, well, math's easy for me, so why don't I get a math degree?
Oh, no way. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's what I studied in college. I have a BS in math. I have a minor in engineering. And
that's why you and I have such good conversations about data, huh?
That's right. So I wanted to go back to my hometown and be one of those people to influence others like me. Always had that mindset of like, look, I wouldn't be where I'm at without the people who've influenced me in my life. And so I planned on becoming a teacher, going back to my hometown and teaching and coaching. I love football, love wrestling, love soccer. Those are sports I played. And that's
awesome, man. Just like inspire people, like help people not go through what you had to go through, or because you had great coaches and teachers, you were able to fight through that. So you wanted to help people fight through that as well. Yeah.
I mean, the reality is you can't control the things in life that you're going to go through. Right. And so having somebody that can help you understand that it's kind of like Buddhism, right? Like we can't have all good. We also don't want to have all bad. It's this like these experiences that we have through our life that make us who we are. And I personally believe that individuals like me who've gone through some of these hardships, right? I could tell you stories.
What was the biggest? Just curious. Just because I've been through a lot of hardship too. So I love someone called me out about loving the hardship hustle. I forget. They've got a word for it on LinkedIn. And I'm like, dude, like, if you go through those hardships, you'll fucking realize why you appreciate that and realize why you appreciate the stories of other people.
Well, shit, even this year, like, this is my family, right? So my aunt was murdered about 6 months ago in Spokane. You can look it up. Kelly Jurdy shot in the head, right?
Oh my God.
That's
prayers and condolences.
That's where I come from. That's my background. That's the stuff I still have to deal with every day. My friends are on methamphetamine, like that's stuff I have to deal with that every day. Like, so that's just like the tip of the iceberg, like the stuff I deal with from where I came from. But I don't let that drive who I am or what I do. And I don't ever make excuses. If you look at some of the things I do on social, I always put no excuses. And people think that's like because I'm a hardcore cold caller, but it's like literally no fucking excuses, man. Like,
yep. Yeah.
I am as white trash as they come. And, I think a lot of people don't know this story about me, but
I had no idea, dude. I mean, and this is like a great learning lesson. Like you and I work together all the time and we talk strategy and we're always trying to positively impact the sales community and drive big results for our customers. But like, dude, I never knew this background. And it just makes me sit back and be like, dude, this is exactly why you got to treat people like so well, and you got to be so humble because you just don't know like how, like I didn't know that your aunt was murdered 6 months ago, and we probably were talking 6 months ago because that was like during the sales development conference and all this shit. So yeah, yep. So you're coming from this tough background. you decide that you want to teach to give back, essentially, and walk us through, what goes on from there.
Yeah, well, I graduated in the best time historically for being a U.S. citizen, which was 2008.
Yep, dude, we graduated the same time. It's terrible.
Uh,
Fuck,
and
terrible.
so you get back into this, like, the world's burning, the economy is like a shit show,
Everything's
and
crashing.
then you want to go, and I'm supposed to be doing my student teaching in Spokane, and I'm back for the summer between graduating college and student teaching, and every night that I go out with some friends on the weekends, there's like fights and all this other stuff. It's like, it's just not gonna. I will not make it, like, as a teacher here. It's just not gonna work, right? Like, my background,
Yep.
my brother, my friends, etc. So I had a few buddies in college that had internships in San Francisco, and I went out to visit them one weekend because I've never been to San Francisco, and I was just blown away by the difference. Like, the world's burning, economy's down, and I literally come out from I flew into Oakland, and I come up from like, I'm right in the FIDI. I come up because one of my buddies, like, they're working down 101 California. This is the building. It's just a beautiful glass building in San Francisco. If you've ever been there.
It's beautiful.
And I'm right there coming out of the BART station, and I see, like, every other car is like a Porsche, and then I see, like, a Ferrari parked on the street. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Right away, I mean, in Spokane, like, a really nice car back then, especially, was like a souped up Honda Civic. It's like Fast and the Furious days. So
Yeah.
I was like, I need to be in San Francisco. This is where I need to be.
This is like that Pursuit of Happiness where Will Gardner sees the guy with the Ferrari and he's like, what do you do? And they're like, yeah, I'm a stockbroker. He's like, all right, I'm doing that.
Yeah. Not so, like, yeah. And it wasn't that I knew what they did. It was just like, I need to be here. I need to figure it out. I'm going to be here because Spokane was not good. I want to be here. So I went home. I packed everything I owned into my parents' 86 Toyota 4Runner. Anything that didn't fit in that, I sold, and I drove down to San Francisco. And
all because you just did that one visit with your buddy and you're like, holy cow, this is going to be the future.
Yep. Called the College of Education in the school, said, hey, I'm not student teaching. I'm done. I'm done. So I literally packed down. I didn't have a job. I had what I had, and I went to San Francisco, did some couch surfing, started interviewing. Back then, Craigslist was the place to find jobs. I did telemarketing in high school, political and consumer surveys for, like, Home Depot and Jaguar. And I was really good at it.
What would they pay you when you were doing my first job when I was 15 was telemarketing. What would they pay you?
So you made minimum wage, which back then was like $5.50 or something, maybe $6.
Yeah, I think I was getting paid like $6.25 or something.
Yeah, but then every campaign had quotas. So, like, if you could get a survey completed per hour or half hour, there was always like a number, X number of completes, they called it, per hour or whatever it was. You would have like a bonus incentive. So, like, if the quota was 1 and you did 2, you would make, like, more money, and if you did 3, you'd make more money.
Yeah,
and so
per hour.
Yeah, per hour.
Yeah,
exactly.
Same here. I'd get like a quarter raise. Like, I was doing a fundraising for, like, the police and firefighters, like nonprofits. And, like, after I raised a certain amount, I'd get a quarter or 50 cents or whatever per hour. That's funny.
For the entire paycheck, which was like constant motivation. So, like, if you were overperforming, you made more. And that's when I was like, all right, well, I was pretty good at the sales thing, and it looks like there's a lot of sales job, even though the economy was blowing up. And I probably had, I don't know, 50 interviews. I got to the final round like 5 times, and everyone kept telling me the same thing. Hey, we really love you. Like, we're super excited about you've done so well. You're smart, you're articulate, but we have, like, this math background. We have someone else who has a little bit of experience. And I was just like, man, someone's got to give me a shot. Someone's got to give me a shot because I'm gonna crush it. And about 3 months later, I ended up taking a job at like Starbucks for a while because I needed to pay I didn't have money. I don't have a trust fund or someone paying my bills.
Right.
Student loan bills are coming in too. I got to do that. Plus I'm living in San Francisco. So I'm working at Starbucks.
Second most expensive city, basically, compared to New York. Brutal.
I finally landed a job at a company called the Rex & Co. And it was a $50 million backed startup, but they were funded by AIG. Yep. So again, we're in 2008, and I got my first job. I'm super excited. I get in. I'm doing well. It's a couple weeks into the job, and then all of a sudden, one day we have an all hands meeting, and our entire company was laid off. And that was because the government had pulled the funding. And if you remember back then, AIG was one of those where it's like all their little investments, like they literally took all of our money. So I was like, shit.
Wow.
What am I going to do? What am I going to do?
That's such bad luck.
I finally got this job. But honestly, bad luck was good luck. And we talk about this, like all these things happen for a reason. And, my mindset has always been like, look, hardships and good, you have to take those learnings. Now, all of a sudden, I had a sales manager who was giving me referrals. I had experience. I knew Salesforce now. I was using Salesforce back then, right?
Sweet. They were using Salesforce then. That was like your first intro.
Exactly. I was using Salesforce. I had a quota, like a ramp quota, and I was overachieving on the ramp quota. Now, all of a sudden, my resume went from I worked at Burger King and telemarketing and like a glass shop in college to look, I've used Salesforce. I had a quota and like I have a reference. And so even when the world was burning and I just got laid off, I got introduced to a recruiting firm, and within a week I had 3 job offers. And I was like, holy, that's when I realized sales. That's when I realized sales was for me. Right? Like if you work hard, you do what you're supposed to do, you kind of always be learning, always be networking, like the sky's the limit. And Mark Cuban says this always, right? Like sales cures all.
Yeah, he says if he had to go back and start all over, if he lost everything, he'd go and sell. I think knock on doors. I forget what he would say, but yeah, something like that.
Always have a fallback. Look, even when the world's like burning up with the economy terrible, like, I have a job. So that next job for me was eSearch Vision. And I feel like this is just dumb luck that I was able to get this job. It was a pay-per-click advertising platform.
Oh, man. So that is like 2009, 2010?
2008.
Dude.
So.
And by the way, just so the audience knows, this is like, I got into paid search marketing about 7 or 8 years after Ryan. This is right when paid search marketing was fire, straight fire, hot as can be. Go ahead, keep going.
Well, that's the thing is it's just like the birth of paid search. Like it's starting to get big. It's like a 60, 70, 80 billion dollar market cap business now. Back then it was like 15. So that type of growth, right? And all of a sudden it was like, it clicked for me. This is math.
It's all math. Search is all math. Yeah.
I'm selling math. And so
sales is all math too, by the way. Well, a lot of art and science, but math as well. Yep.
Well, and this is where I learned it. So like I'm selling, I'm the back then it was lead generation specialist, but I'm the first US based hire for this, pay-per-click advertising company. They have a couple of good logos. They were working with Sephora and Netflix. And actually Apple. They were the pay-per-click agency of record for Apple, which is insane.
That's awesome.
Coming over from France, and they wanted to grow their U.S. business. And I just stumbled into this job. Back then I was like, this is spam, right? Like remember those pop-ups that would happen? I was like, this is spam. I never click on those ads. But all of a sudden I was in this business. No one accordingly was spending money anymore because the economy is bad, but I just figured it out, right? This is where I realized the fundamentals of sales development.
Like if you spend X dollars, right, then you get Y clicks. The Y clicks will return into Z leads. The Z leads will return into F opportunities, and then that will return into revenue. And then like you show that biz case to the customer, right?
Right. On the pay-per-click side. And I realized it's the same thing in sales.
Yep.
X number of leads, do
Yep.
X number of activities. So shit, a phone call is just like a digital ad. An email is like a digital ad.
It's an impression.
Right? It's an impression, exactly, which will result X number of responses, and those responses will result. So how many conversations am I having? How many of those conversations will lead to a real opportunity, and then how many of those opportunities can we close? And it just started to really come together for me as like, you know, I talk about this all the time. It's just the math of sales. We had this big program that I would sell to companies called an audit, which is just like, hey,
search audit or digital audit.
Well, that's like everyone does that now, but back then it was new. Like we did audit.
Would you do it for free? I used to do it for free. I would be like, look, I'll do this search audit for you for free. It's $5,000, $10,000. And then like, they're like, oh shit, I want more. And then they buy a 6-7 figure deal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I went from world's burning, no experience. Now all of a sudden I'm growing, and I was on fire. Like in my first year, I brought over like $6-7 million of pipeline. I was rapidly promoted from lead generation to AE, and then from AE to the director of sales. And by the time I left ESV, I went.
And what do you think? Hold on. What do you think caused that? So, like, obviously, being an expert in math, like your math degree in search and in sales is highly valuable. What caused the quick promotion, the quick success there? Just like to understand the sales success.
I mean, I think it's a little bit of luck, right? And timing. Like I stumbled into this job. If I would have went and started selling, I don't know, I had another offer at like LoopNet, right? If I was selling real estate at that time.
Oh yeah, LoopNet. That's funny.
What if like commercial real estate would have probably died, right? Like so, like I could have done the same things. I could have learned the same. I wouldn't have like had it click, but I could have died. And then I had another offer at a company called Human Space, which they did like ergonomic chairs for offices.
Oh,
and
sweet. Yep.
You know, like now that might be successful, but back then no one's going to pay to make your like spine, work out. But now companies spend on that shit. But like I had those 3 offers and I took the digital one. I don't know why, I just did. And it just wasn't smart. It was luck. It was a little bit of luck, right? Like I felt good about it. I had a great mentor, Mark Wendling, who's now the VP of corporate sales at Snowflake, this fucking rapid growing.
They raised $1 gazillion. They're crushing it. I gotta learn.
So he was my mentor. Like he taught me a lot of stuff. I read all the time, and I just busted my ass. Right, I'd be the first in the office, the last to leave. And I know you get this. I know you get a lot of shit for this as well. I don't talk about how hard I work a lot of times. I'll do some posts, but I would literally show up in like as soon as the very first BART train could get me into downtown San Francisco, I was in the office, and a lot of times I wasn't home until the last BART train would get me back out, or I was trying to take a cab back then. This was before Uber still.
And by the way, guys, it's 1:30 on a Saturday. Like Ryan and I are always hustling. Ryan doesn't like to talk about it because whatever. I talk about it because I don't give a shit about the haters. I don't care about haters. It doesn't really bother me at all. Like, yeah, if you wanted to do anything big in life, it takes a lot of work.
It is. And so that's what it was. And I know I hate it because we have a little bit of a time crunch today too, because I got to run to something, but I'll start to fast forward the story a little bit because it's all the same, right?
Okay. Awesome. Keep going.
Like come in, work hard, understand. The first and most important thing that you need to understand is your product or service doesn't fucking matter. No one gives a shit about your feature or your functionality or what you could do for them. You have to start by helping companies solve a problem. So I learned that very often: solve a problem or go away. And that kind of mindset around, hey, I want to solve problems, is what allowed me to kind of identify companies that I think are solving big problems, even when other people don't know. And I've been a part of a lot of early stage companies. So I went from eSearch Vision. Did really well, was growing, a lot of fun stories there. And my original manager from Rex & Co. and I had been in touch. We played poker and all this stuff in the city for a few years.
Oh, sweet. You probably crushed it at poker knowing math. Did you crush it at poker?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So we probably know all the odds. I used to play poker big time.
And so Matt McGraw is his name. Him and I came together at a coffee shop. He's like, "Hey, I'm in this office." He did some Salesforce consulting for after X and Co, and I was doing the ESV Digital. And he's like, "This my office mate is making like 50, 60, $70,000 a week recruiting, and like has no process, doesn't have tools or systems.
Oh my gosh.
She's just a good salesperson. You're a great salesperson. I know process. Let's put this together and change the game in recruiting." And so we launched, this was my first entrepreneurial experience. We launched the Lions in San Francisco. So the Lions was my first venture. I joined as a co-founder with Matt and his roommate, Sean. Today, it's probably the second largest recruiting firm in San Francisco behind Betts Recruiting, sales specific. And at this time, it's 2010. All the money's coming back in San Francisco. So we were like at the heart of, hey, you need AEs, we'll get you AEs. I want to try to find more people like me. Like let's get this non-traditional background, because I had that experience, and this will continue into my second to last venture, which was many companies have bias around who is a good fit for sales, and they will say if you don't have the experience, you won't be successful. And I wanted to change that. It's not about what you've done; it's about what you can do. And there's a DNA associated with individuals who can be successful in sales and who can't. And that's what the Lions is all about. So we launched that in 2010, rapidly expanded. Some of our early customers were like Dropbox, Box.com, ClearSlide.
You guys just quit all your jobs and you launched this sales recruiting startup?
Yep. I went from a very well-paying 6-figure job to this. Didn't take a pay for 3, 4, 5 months. Then started making like what I was making in the beginning, like $3,000 a month for, another 6 months before, we got the thing off the ground. And so that was the Lions.
Okay. And why did you want to leave? Weren't you guys crushing it?
Things were going really well. We had some differences around what we wanted to do. We had a different model when we were moving into the market. I still subscribe to this as a service model. I was kind of ahead of the time around the subscription economy. And Matt he saw the big checks coming in on the flat placement fees. When we launched the Lions, we did hey, look, we have the best talent in the world, but you don't pay this is still when the economy is a little bad. You don't pay 20% up front. You pay 3.5% of placement, but for the life of the rep. As long as they're at your company, you keep paying us every quarter. Boom, 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 boom. So that's how we launched.
Interesting.
And he wanted to grow fast, but for cash flow and to pay the recruiters, he wanted to pay the 20% placement.
Yeah.
And so we had some conflict around the idea of where we were going. Also, like I only wanted to represent the best of the best. I used to always pitch it like we're the Scott Boras of sales recruitment. Like we're going to find the talent before the talent. We're going to find you the Alex Rodriguez in high school, right? And then bring them through the leagues.
Oh,
that
wow.
was kind of cool. How I pitched it. And there was some conflict around like how we wanted to grow the agency. That's stuff you go through as partners, but I also was getting recruited back to ESV Digital. So Mark Windling was leaving. He was taking a job at ClearSlide, which, by the way, we helped recruit to that VP of sales job there because they were a customer. And he's like, hey, Stan, which is the CEO in Paris, he said, Ryan is the one that knows all the customers. He brought them all on anyway. Like he should be the managing director. So I actually got recruited back to ESV Digital and ran the U.S. operations for sales and operations for another year.
That's awesome. What was the biggest learning experience, sales learning experience from the Lions?
So from the Lions, I think one of the biggest things that I learned there, and there's actually, this is where I started getting fascinated with technology. I was one of the first adopters of Yesware. So you could literally look my name up and I'm a testimonial for Yesware online.
It's awesome.
Ryan at the Lions. And I started to realize again, how much more, how technology can impact sales, how data can impact sales. And if you look at it, it's like all of a sudden now I know who's opened my emails and I can respond in real time. I can also start to put process behind my messaging, so I'm not repeating the same emails over and over again. I don't have to rewrite things. And so using their templates and using their open analytics completely changed the game and our ability to grow fast. So we went from nothing to, representing 40 of the fastest growing companies in San Francisco in less than a year with Alliance, really on the back of Yesware.
Wow.
And that's where I got super excited about how you can use tools and data to accelerate your sales process. That was my biggest learning there. It was like, holy shit, there's this movement of sales acceleration technology. And Yesware was one of the first movers in that space.
I remember Yesware and ToutApp, right? They were like the first email tools. That's awesome. So then you go back to the search agency, you crush it. What's next after kind of going back there?
Yeah, from there, I stumbled into my first role with venture capital. So I got recruited to a social startup called University at the time, and this was at my heart because it's education. It's an educational startup. It was backed by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and it was helping universities with something with enrollment. So enrollment's a big problem. Not only finding the right candidate, like students, but also if those students are going to persist. And they were moving from a private social network for a university, which was pretty cool, into they were using data. They were building this product called enrollment intelligence. So
nice.
they would create these private social networks. When you apply to a university, you would get invited, and then based on your engagement with other students, if you like friended a certain amount of people, you had so much engagement, they could predict the likelihood of future persistence within the university, which was really cool. I got fired up about that, obviously. And one of their customers was my alma mater, Washington State. So I was like very, very excited about it. So I joined that company as my first venture-backed company as a sales leader. And my goal was to grow the team. So I quickly got to work, hired a bunch of reps. We were crushing it. Our first quarter, we had the biggest sales quarter of all times for the company. But then as we moved into the second and third quarter, we started to realize that there were only a handful of universities that actually had enough data and, could have actually work with what we were trying to do. And so the plan that they had presented to me to do that I was executing on, showed that while there was they thought there was 15,000 universities, only 2,000. So we hired a bunch of people and they're like, hey, we have to downsize. And so I said, I was here to grow a big team. That's what I was excited about with venture, because I've always been in these kind of bootstrap startups. It's not for me. And so I actually left and went to SellPoints, which was another well-funded venture-backed company that was back on the digital advertising front, working with very large brands, very large retailers. And they were doing some really cool stuff around channel marketing.
So biggest learning experience, sales learning experience at university. What would you say that was?
TAM.
TAM, yeah. If you've got a small TAM, you're going to be in trouble.
TAM and growth, right? So there's a difference between growth through people and growth through process, and also knowing what your TAM looks like. So that's why, I started talking to you about the TAM man, right?
Yeah, TAM man.
TAM is so important, and you have to understand what your total addressable market is before you go out and hire a bunch of people and start to scale.
Okay, so then you move to
crucial.
So, no, I love that. That's great advice. So then you move to SellPoint. You're there for another 2 years, and this was like a conversion technology, right? Or
So SellPoint's core technology was something called content syndication. So they work with brands like Canon, and they partner with retailers like Walmart, and they take Canon's products, videos, images, product descriptions, and they Canon uploads this one time into SellPoint, and they would disseminate it or syndicate it into Walmart, Best Buy, Staples. So they do one and done. So if you went to a product SKU on one website, everywhere you would find that product online, it's similar, right? And the brand doesn't have to actually upload it into every single website. It's good for everybody. That was their core technology, but there's 3 players in that space, and it's kind of dying. It's a commodity now. So they're kind of just, basically taking it down to zero in terms of cost, and they're trying to basically figure out what's the next step. A new CEO, Brian O'Keefe, came on board. They were trying to sell SellPoint, And he said, hey, I've got an idea. It's not about the syndication, it's about the data. It's the engagement on the products that is super valuable. And so he had this idea of acquiring a couple different agencies for SEO, for pay-per-click. He ended up buying a retargeter, a retargeting company. And it's like, look, let's use all this data engagement where we could come up with a way to help brands remarket from the retailer's data. Retailers love this. I don't want to get into too much of the weeds because retailers are dying, and like, how do they monetize their retailers mostly make money through co-marketing. Like if you're a brand and you sell on them, you have to give them money to sell at your site or your retail site.
Yep.
We were giving them the opportunity to do that digitally. And so in this transformation, we're using big data, customer engagement to help understand who your next best customer is, and also start things called channel remarketing.
So the biggest sales learning experience there with that, you saw it start to commoditize, and then you're all over the place. Like what was the biggest thing there?
Yeah, at SellPoint, I think one of the things is focus. So there's so many things you can do in any entrepreneurial endeavor, and when you see leadership take on another project, but don't focus on getting the first project right, it becomes challenging. And so one of the things that I was frustrated with is I could sell that shit all day long. I mean, anyone could, even to this day, like that's almost like a, in sales they say no brainer, but almost a no brainer value prop. Like, hey, what if I could tell you exactly who your customers are looking at? Like we could do, like, if you're Philips and you're trying to sell TVs, I could tell you that there's other people browsing on Sony and you could retarget your Philips TV. Like, who doesn't want that?
Right. Well, totally.
Congress might get scared about that. Like, but we have that data. That's how digital works. Right. And so, like, while we had a powerful story, it's so important to focus on making sure that you can actually deliver what you're selling. So one of
I like the focus, because it's easy for entrepreneurs or salespeople, even like sales management, to want to sell 17 different products. Like, dude, it sounds like right when you said, like, he's like, I want to acquire SEO, I want to acquire PPC, I want to do I'm like, dude, and you and I before this call, we were just talking about focus and the importance there. Like, it sounds like they were just all over the place.
Well, not so much over. They had a big vision, which I do now, as well as we were talking about earlier. And it's like, what I learned from it though is that make sure that you nail it before you scale it. And that's actually one of our little slogans. If you look at,
I love that quote. Yeah. Nail it before you scale it.
Nail it before you scale it. And like, look, if you have great salespeople, you can go tell a story and sell all day long. But if you can't execute on it, you're going to churn and you're going to put revenue at risk. And I think a lot of companies get super excited about being able to drive new business, but it's so much more important to keep the business you have, because it's much more difficult to acquire a new customer than to keep that customer happy. Yep. And so for me, that's where I started to learn the power of customer success and how important it is to ensure that there's alignment from sales to success. What we're saying in sales is actually what we can deliver. And that was one of my biggest frustrations when I left SellPoints, was that it just took a long time for the product to get to what we were selling, but we continued to sell it. And so I ended up leaving to a company. I got recruited actually to a company called Bushaka, which is doing something very, very similar to what we were doing at SellPoints, but it was more on the social front. And social is starting to blow up, right?
It's funny because I did some work for Shoutlet, one of my entrepreneur advisors. Shoutlet and Sprinkler competed, and Bushaka was acquired by Sprinkler, I believe.
Yep, that's right. So I joined Bushaka. We were pre-Series A. The founder wanted to bring me in to go grow revenues with the goal of eventually building out a sales team while he focused on raising Series A.
So you were like one of the only people on the sales team then?
I was the only person on sales team.
Oh, you were number one at Bushaka.
Yeah.
Wow.
On sales. And and we were planning on building a large sales organization like I had done at SellPoints. So SellPoints, I took them from 4 million to 19. We were Inc. 5,000. Built a team from like 2 to 30 in terms of salespeople. So I was gonna do the same at Bushaka, but when I got in, two things happened. One, Facebook changed for literally from March to April of, I think it was 15. They changed their privacy policy. So Bushaka had this viral product that, I mean, there was 400,000 customers using this thing, where they were doing these like engagement leaderboards, and it was one-to-one. Like I could tell you exactly who is engaging with anything. And they moved it from that to audience. If you know anything about advertising now, you go from one-to-one, like I know it's you, Brandon. Like I could literally serve an ad to Brandon, to now I can serve to an audience as a Brandon using your email or phone number. So that change in their privacy policy changed our product offering. But when I came in before, I was like, holy shit, this is true one-to-one marketing at scale. To okay, now we have to go back to audience. So what that happened when I joined, 1 month later, we got our revenue cut in half, which caused issues with fundraising because of the
Brutal.
privacy policy. But I started to sell this new product we were building called Audience, and it was working. We got into Mars and Walmart and American Apparel. Like we were selling it, but he was struggling to get good valuation on fundraising, and so we ended up selling to Sprinkler. We were getting traction.
So did you sell to Sprinkler? So you guys didn't even raise a Series A. You just sold it, right? Wow.
Yep.
I mean, that's still a good exit. Like I'm sure they made some money. I'm sure stock or whatever. Was it good or no?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was there for less than a year. So here's your learning, vesting, and so again, I'm learning from learning.
Like make sure it all vests if you get acquired.
Yeah. So understanding the terms of what it is. So I joined them with the principle of like I had significant equity, but it was on a 4-year vesting schedule, and we sold in 9 months. And
Damn.
so literally when the deal happened, I had a whole new deal with Sprinkler, which I was there for a while, but for a short period of time because I ended up starting Inside Sales Bootcamp. But it was a whole new deal for me. And so here's another learning too: patience. At Sell Points, I had a much bigger plan, and they ended up getting acquired another year later, and I would have made a lot more money on that. But I had left because of this big equity kick, and my success of getting the business off the ground, running, dealing with hardships, etc., I still didn't get paid out on that. And so a lot of young not entrepreneurs, but just people getting into sales, when you look at your equity component of your compensation plan, make sure you understand how that works. Is there a liquidity trigger? And ultimately really starting to ask some key questions around like what is the strike price? What's the total value? So a lot of people will say, hey, you got some equity, you get, whatever number of shares, but like how many of those, what's the percentage of the total? Those are things that you learn by going through that process. But I think a lot of people don't know. They think it's exciting, they have equity, but it's like a very small sliver.
Yep.
Or you might have a big chunk of it, but like how are you going to take care of me if there is
and for those that are interested, like I don't know if you agree, right? But you're not going to make any money if you're not like on the sell of the company. If you're not like the first 10, I feel like if you're not an early team member, don't even worry about the exit because you won't get much equity. Like this is coming from a guy this is my third tech company, and I've gone through hell and invested millions of dollars in my own cash. Like every tech company, like if you're not the early team member, like Ryan was the first sales guy, so he had equity. Like, but if you're like the 17th or whatever, like there's just not a big payout. Just worry about driving revenue and making the commissions.
Well, and that's where when you negotiate your compensation plan, make sure it's like, look, the entrepreneur is going to tell you, hey, we'll give you some equity. Fuck the equity, make your money. And the entrepreneur should be okay with that. If you're a salesperson, be like, hey, look, pay me if I'm driving your revenue. And that's something that, well, now since then I've only been an entrepreneur, but like if I ever sold for someone ever again, I'm like, if it's not my business,
all I care about is the money. Same here.
Fuck you, pay me.
F you money. So then you go on to Inside Sales Bootcamp for 2.5 years roughly, and that's where you like teach people sales, tech. Walk us quickly. You're sick of Sprinkler. You join Inside Sales Boot. You build Inside Sales Bootcamp.
I wasn't so sick of Sprinkler. It was more so that Sprinkler was my first experience of like real enterprise sales. I've always been a part of really early stage startups, and all of a sudden I went from a 10-person Bushaka startup to a 1,500-person Sprinkler They call themselves a startup.
Wow.
That's not a startup. And I
No.
was a SME, I had a great job. I was the director of paid audience. I was traveling all over the world, but I was a SME. Like, this is where I realized like how all this stuff comes together.
Subject matter experts. Me.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah. And so, fun, great. But what I realized is that like pipe is life, and Sprinkler was just like, they're always hitting their number, but it was insane. Like, the VP of sales that was there had hit his number like, uh, I think it was like 10 quarters in a row, and then missed by like a small percentage and got fired. And it was insane because he was like, he's still considered one of the best sales leaders. You know, if you can look him up later, but
What's his name?
Like this guy. I can't even remember his name right off the top of my head now.
You
but
can look it up. Yeah.
You can look up who he was.
What do you think drove?
This was like right when I joined, where it was like he had hit. We joined and he missed and he was fired. I was like, whoa.
Wow.
And then there was this pressure of like, hey, how are we going to get leads? How are we going to do this? And when I was there, I was like, well, I know how to do this. Like, and this is what sparked the idea of this Inside Sales Bootcamp. Was like, these companies are struggling to hire. They all want 1 year's experience to do sales development, but there's no school out there of teaching like before they join. And so they would hire people expecting them to be able to do the job, but they, you know, unless you worked somewhere else, or in reality, like, there's not that many real enterprise sales companies. So you can't get the experience unless you have the experience, right? Like, there's this gap. And so that's where Inside Sales Bootcamp came. Was I wanted to try to help folks trying to come out of university into career to get some experience before they got their real sales job, or those trying to switch careers, which goes back to my previous recruiting job, which goes back to who I am. I'm not a traditional salesperson. I studied math and engineering. How do I help these folks like learn the fundamentals of sales? And that was Inside Sales Bootcamp.
So you did that for a while, and then like, what was your biggest learning experience selling and building that business?
Understanding as an entrepreneur anyway, like understanding scale, right? So great, there's a problem, you know, you're helping a lot of people, but there's a difference between like what you're passionate about and like if you want to scale a big business. So for us, there's this consistent conflict between like, I was doing what I loved. I was doing, like, honestly, it's the best job in the world. I freaking love helping people. I love helping them, and I still do it today. Like, people reach out to me all the time. I try to help them. But if it's not helping me personally get to where I need to go, you know, it's not a real business. And so, you know,
so it was just like hard to sell it. Like, was it hard to sell like the SDR? So like selling to people that they need to join the boot camp. Like, and by the way, did they pay you to join the boot camp and then you would place them as well? Like, what was that model?
No. So the model was, at first we tried to do that, like the dev boot camps, et cetera. But we realized in sales, like, if you're pretty good at sales, you're going to get a job anyway. So we switched it and we started to sell to companies. Companies pay us, we recruit the talent, we train the talent, and it became a recruiting agency all over again. So I was doing my old business from the Lions, but now adding coaching and recruiting. And Brandon, I'm sorry, I gotta rush this a little bit towards the end, and I know we gotta get into the secret.
Yeah. Okay. So, but with the recruiting, like, don't you think that would be super sick? Like, wouldn't that be super successful because you already know that model?
Yeah,
but it's just hard to scale.
It's hard to scale. Like, it makes money, but it's hard to scale, and you have to scale through people. You have to scale through consistent, great people. And that's what I learned quickly was like, in that role, you're talking about your learning is like, look, it's a business. It's good, makes money. But when other people want to get it bigger and they can't cover their own piece of it, it's hard to scale, right? So if you're going to scale through people, you're always capped by people.
Yeah.
And so that's where the sales developers came in. It's like, we're working with all these companies. They're trying to hire a bunch of people, but it's like, actually, if you start with process and you use modern technology, one person can become multiplicatively more productive.
Yeah.
And that's where the sales developers came in. Is like, look, why are you trying to hire a bunch of people? Why don't we first start with great process, then use these modern technologies, and then one can become like 5 or 10.
Yeah. I know.
That's where the next business came in.
So you've got the sales consultancy, right? You do call it sales agency, sales consultancy. What? How do you define that to sales developers?
Yeah, I would say we're a sales agency today.
Okay. Awesome.
Powered by technology. So we're going to be rolling out more and more software to deploy what we do, but we also partner with great companies like Seamless and others to ensure that process first, then the use of technology, and then great people.
And then you also wrote the book, Outbound Sales No Fluff, which is awesome. I'm a huge fan. Guys, pick up your copy of the book. But now we got to go into, I know that you have to rush, so we're going to dive into this quickly. Audience is dying to know, man. I mean, you've been through hell and back. You've worked a ton of different places, jobs, careers, industries. Sales secrets from the top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. Ryan Reisert, if you had to go back in time to when you first got in sales, if you could only share one sales secret with yourself to maximize your sales success, what is your top sales secret?
So this is maybe not a secret for a lot of people, but it's what I always drive back to is at the end of the day, sales is a process. Sales is a process. So the secret, process, process, process. Everything you do should be documented and followed to a T as much as you can. And then as you learn for what's working, what's not working, make those adjustments. And so if you're not in a position to, like, if you're out there just kind of shooting from your hip, guessing, not preparing, you're not putting together a script, you're not putting together like a consistent understanding of why, if you're not asking that question why ahead of each of the things that you're doing, and you don't have a schematic around if this, then that, like if then flow chart, then you're doing it wrong. Because you're just gonna, when you have success, you don't know how to repeat that success. When you have failures, you don't know how to avoid those failures in the futures. So sales is a process. And if I could go back in time, I would literally document everything I've done from the very beginning and start to understand how, like, what's the process? That's the question I should be asking myself every single time. If there's a failure, what's the process? If there's a success, what's the process? And when someone comes to me and asks me a question as a leader, I ask them, what's the process? And if that process is not documented, you got to document it, because once you figure that out, that simple principle, all of a sudden things become easy, because it's a process, right?
Sales is a process. And I love the if this, then that. It reminds me of programming. I say this all the time. Sales is like a game of chess. Sales is a process. There's always like the next best move to make. There's if this, then that. It's a process. Where does salespeople that are average, new to sales, salespeople that are in the top 1% that want to get even greater to $1 million earners, where do you start? Like, sales is a process. Okay, I think I kind of know what that means. Like, where would I start? Like, where do I start to build a process?
Target, message, channel, timing.
Target, message, channel, timing. Okay, so you recommend create a process around like who you're targeting first.
Who are you targeting? That's most important. List is most important.
Okay.
If I don't know who I'm targeting to,
your TAM, which we talked about. Who's your TAM?
Message,
your target.
What am I going to say to them? The more personalized, the more relevant, better. Channel, where do they want to receive this message? Right? Not where I want to deliver it. Where do they want to receive it? So you have to use them all. And then finally, timing. Timing is like, you can't control that, but you can use data. And you can also ensure that if I engage you today, Brandon, it's not a good time, I'm on top of that follow-up. And follow-up is key. So
target, message, channel, timing, right?
Target, message, channel, timing.
And you got to use sales. Sales is a process. You have to develop the process in target, messaging, channel, and timing to be successful. If you need one place to start with the target, then work on the messaging, then figure out the channels, then figure out the timing. Wow. Ryan Reisert, sales is a process. If this and that. Target, message, channel, timing. Target, message, channel, timing. Amazing, man. Where can people follow you, subscribe, learn from you today for more?
LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. It's your LinkedIn is sales development representative. I love it. IN/sales development representative. Ryan Reisert, student of sales, the sales developers, author of Outbound Sales No Fluff. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. Pre-order your copy at secretsalesbook.com. Get your copy at secretsalesbook.com. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%. We release new episodes every Monday and Thursday, so make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube to never miss an episode.